Thank you so much for joining us for this session. We are so excited to be here from Down Under to deliver this wonderful session about accelerating value-based healthcare transformation with AWS. My name is Zoe Flanagan, and I have been with AWS for over 5.5 years, and in that time I've always worked within our public sector business. It's definitely been a privilege, as you can imagine, both as someone that's very passionate about technology and helping our customers deliver new transformative digital citizen services, but also then getting to be a citizen that gets to consume those services at the same time. It's definitely something that during the pandemic and working with the healthcare department, well, the state healthcare department really meant a lot to be contributing to our country's recovery effort. This session is one I'm so pleased that we've been able to come here and get on the slate at reInvent. Transformation in healthcare post-pandemic has never been more necessary than right now. Today, Fahud, myself, and Roland are going to be talking to you about the what and why of value-based healthcare transformation. But we'll spend most of today focusing on Fahud and the eHealth transformation story. It is incredible. They have been working really hard and are incredibly ambitious in the work that they've been doing. And so we're going to show you what transformation can really look like through the lens of eHealth New South Wales. And then we're going to round out the session today with a fireside chat between Roland, our Director of International Public Sector Healthcare, and Fahud to really dive deeper into key themes discussed throughout the session. Our hope is that it leaves you with a complete picture around what value-based healthcare is, how it can help your organization transform, and maybe give you some great takeaways for things that you might be able to do as well. So let's dive straight in. So, why transforming to value-based healthcare really matters. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a recent study by the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare that indicated about 35% of people that show up at emergency rooms are presenting with non-emergency type conditions. And this sort of inefficient use of the healthcare system causes blockages. It's not the thing that we want to be happening, right? And it results in healthcare provider ecosystems really imbalanced. And there's always a blowout of wait times, which we're seeing in every emergency department all around the globe. It's a big problem that's very common. And so what we also see is that when wait times blow out, patients get frustrated. They express that frustration towards our wonderful clinicians that don't deserve it, that work exceptionally hard. And this has a further knock-on effect, because the National Centre for Biotechnology Information found in their recent study that there's a link between abusive behaviour from frustrated patients, a condescending language, them being very rude, towards our medical professionals, and a link between the number of medical errors made during treatment. Now, one can agree that's not a situation that we want. This is just one example of why healthcare transformation is needed for our industry. For healthcare organisations, the challenge for delivering value-based, cost-efficient care amid ever-increasing costs has never been greater. Inefficiencies are driving up operational expenses while reducing reimbursements and revenue. The lack of personalised care can lead to unnecessary or ineffective treatments and even costly readmissions, creating a poor patient experience, but also potentially poor patient outcomes. And trying to keep patient information secure and private adds yet another layer of burden to the overstretched healthcare organisation as we fight the ever-growing cybersecurity pain point that we all share. So how can value-based healthcare assist with this? Well, let's start with determining what it is. So value-based healthcare is personalised and it's outcome-focused. It centres all efforts on improving patient outcomes and their experiences and increasing efficiencies in care delivery. It engages all layers of the healthcare sector, from the providers, primary, secondary, acute, to research, to government, to pharma, to payers. They all need to come together to help deliver the right care for patients in the right place at the right time that's going to deliver the best care outcomes for them. The value also comes from when you try to spread care across the whole healthcare ecosystem, you should also be reducing the cost of care because it's shared more equitably across all layers of the industry, leading to greater potentials in preventative and proactive care as opposed to the reactive care models that we most commonly have today. Value-based healthcare models include and require collaboration and input from patients, clinicians, and the community. This collaborative approach is essential to better outcomes for patients. However, to transition towards this type of healthcare value-based delivery model, it requires transformation to occur at the foundations of every organization to be able to pivot and deliver this new type of care. For example, this was essential. Any organization that had the right foundations in place at the beginning of the pandemic were able to respond faster to that situation. And the cloud is a huge enabler of change. While there are great challenges in healthcare, the truth is the opportunity to transform and the impact you can have is greater. Cloud technology and AWS present an extraordinary opportunity to reshape the solutions that underpin the healthcare industry as a whole. These solutions can help organizations improve the availability and security of their most mission-critical applications. Cloud services can help support planned as well as unplanned, with that pesky pandemic, needs for elasticity and scale, making it easier than ever to grow as demand continues to increase for your services, as well as the growing amounts of healthcare data that you're now needing to store, enabling your organization to optimize clinical workflows and increase clinician productivity by being able to take what were paper or manual programs of work to digital and automated. The cloud also makes it cheaper and faster to digitally innovate. For example, cloud-based data lakes can quickly start consuming advanced analytics services or machine learning or artificial intelligence, which we're already seeing realized impacts in the new era of personalized medicine. And the explosion of virtual care options such as telehealth or wearables and devices attest to the desire of both clinicians and patients for more efficient and personalized care, enabling it to be provided more cost efficiently and closer to where the patient would like that, for example, from the comfort of their own home. Next slide. Yes, there we go. And what that means is that when you use AWS, you'll be supported by a platform that is secure, resilient, and highly available. This platform will help to create the foundations your organization needs to be able to move quickly and transform to be able to deliver value-based healthcare. We can help take away that operational burden, that manual heavy lifting of managing your most mission-critical or clinical or corporate environment systems. You can focus on being able to respond better to a pandemic or delivering a new ministerial priority or anything that's going to deliver more value for your patients and your clinicians. That could be simplifying an interaction with you as a healthcare provider. It could be trying to address clinician burnout or reinvesting in digital skills for your workforce, or just improving the overall operational performance of your organization holistically. However, to best demonstrate this sort of slide, which has a lot of marketing-y type buzzwords and motherhood statements, I always find the best way to bring this to life is with a wonderful customer story. And so fortunately, we have a wonderful customer who I'm so delighted to be able to introduce. Fahud Salimi, he's the Executive Director of Service Delivery at eHealth New South Wales, and he is here to share their wonderful transformation story. So welcome, Fahud.
Thank you, Zoe, and good afternoon, reInvent. I'm not going to tell you who I am. Zoe's already done a fabulous job of that, but essentially, if you're wondering, I essentially look after the Chief Technology Office function at eHealth New South Wales. Big green button, there we go. So before we get underway, just want to tell you a little bit about us, who we are, and where we fit in the picture. So New South Wales Health is the largest public health system in Australia, and we're world class. We provide the public health care for approximately 8.2 million residents in the state of New South Wales, in 228 hospitals, and employ over 160,000 staff. And every year we provide 351,000 surgeries and attend to over 3 million emergency department visits. Now, to give you a bit of a feel for the size of the the state. I had a little bit of a Google at it, and we're at 2.8 times the size of the state of Nevada. So that's quite a significant area to cover across rural, regional, and metro, which makes it very challenging. Not to mention that we've got the world's most dangerous creatures running around in the backyard as well, just to add a little bit of flavour to it. Now, our vision for New South Wales Health, and this is the New South Wales Health vision across the organisation, is for a sustainable health system that delivers outcomes that matter to patients, is personalised, invests in wellness, and is digitally enabled. Now, the wonderful thing about this is that you can see that digital is already stated in there as one of the key enablers for our future vision and future strategy. And our strategy for digital health underneath that spans over 3 horizons across 10 years, with Horizon 1 being about consistent foundations, so really about getting all our systems implemented and together. Horizon 2 about integration and interoperability. Most of you in healthcare would know that integration and interoperability is a major issue. And finally, personalisation of healthcare. Now, each one of these is characterised by a different step change in how we do digitisation, with the first moving from, as Zoe said, paper systems to digital systems. Secondly, shifting from all those fragmented systems to more integrated service delivery. And finally, moving from provider-centric to a patient-centric paradigm. So, now moving into more of the technology side of things. eHealth New South Wales, the organisation I work for, is the digital health agency for New South Wales. We support over 159 business systems across corporate platforms such as finance, rostering, payroll, clinical systems such as our EMRs, electronic medical records, pharmacy systems, diagnostic imaging systems, and also our statewide analytics and warehousing environments. All of these environments are hosted on our on-premises, or we're hosted on our on-premises VMware environment. And as part of that digitization journey, they've grown from 3,500 to 8,000 virtual machines, roughly about 175 terabytes of memory. And every time we migrate something out of there, it just keeps filling back up like quicksand. So annually, in terms of IT size, we're about 696 billion logs that we analyze on an annual basis through our security center. And hopefully we receive and close over 1 million IT calls a year, and we use Amazon Connect to do that piece of our service, which has been fantastic. In the current on-premise environment, an environment build or a service build, which is very simple ones, by the way, take about 6 to 8 weeks to provision. By the time we get the requirements, spin up some of the VMs, connect the network, and put all the other bits and pieces, 6 to 8 weeks before anyone can get hold of that system to do something innovative. And all the equipment that we have in our data center in one shape or form is actually due to be refreshed by 2025. So there's a lot to be modernized as part of that. So to stop that continued growth, about 3.5 years ago, I stopped buying hardware. Now, we're growing at a significant rate, and I've just stopped buying hardware. It's a pretty bold move to do that, considering you didn't have another plan to actually grow, right? So that's how we kicked off our cloud strategy, but it actually forced the organization to rethink about how they would actually host that environment without actually going for the easiest option, which was just to spin up another VM. Earlier this year, because as we're migrating out, there's more capacity. So earlier this year, I actually put a new process in that even increases in virtual machine sizes would have to get approved by myself. So really forcing the organization to think about how to change their behaviors to actually take advantage of the new environments. So to take you through some of our, key achievements over the years. In the early days, around 2015, 16, when we started first using cloud, just like most organizations, it was pretty much ungoverned. We essentially were buying cloud on a credit card. I'm sure most of you have been there in the past when you first started this journey. My first use case was actually a platform or a system we'd just gone live across 2 sites, and the environment came to a bit of a grinding halt. So we had to actually re-architect that environment, but didn't have the capital to be able to expand that on-premise. So 2 of us in the back of a shed, rang up our AWS account rep and said, we need to try something new. That was, the start of our cloud journey, and we managed to re-architect that platform, and now it supports the 160-odd thousand people. But that wasn't going to scale with 2 people sitting in the back of a shed. So, In 2019, we established our cloud platform as a standardized offering, which I'll go into a little bit more detail next. And then in 2020, we followed up with our internal development academy to get our people and skills, to give our people the tools and skills they needed to actually use that platform. But we really weren't moving at the pace that we needed to move. So in 2020, later in 2020, we actually started our collaboration with AWS as part of our refresh program to actually move that at a faster pace. Our first big ecosystem that we started to migrate was actually 8 of our largest clinical platforms, including our patient administration systems, maternity and oral health systems. Those things had never been done anywhere globally at the time. And earlier this year, we managed to enable an enterprise data lake, which basically enables us to take stream data, both from our corporate and clinical applications, straight into it in real time so we can actually perform real-time analytics or close to real-time analytics. And that's for unstructured and structured data, especially from an EMR system. And as you can see right at the tail end, I am standing in front of you today with 30% of our workload. It's a bit over 30%, that was as of June. Currently hosted in public cloud, which is a significant effort in the last 2 years. So, to take you through some of the detail, first we needed that technology platform to actually standardize and accelerate what we were doing. Now, what really helped us in the early days and to have that quicker conversation with conviction was this strategy that was published by the New South Wales government. It was actually refreshed in 2020. It was cloud first originally, but it became a cloud mandate. And that updated policy really strengthened how we were doing things and really changed the way that we approached cloud. The main principles, as you can see, is cloud native, optimization using your information and data, configuration over customization to really enable you to be agile rather than the old ways. And the strategy goes further by putting 3 key measures for all the government agencies that we had to adhere to. The biggest one being that all agencies had to have 25% of their workload in cloud by the end of 2023. We've already beaten that, but that's okay. The only agency, by the way, that's done that. Then to further enforce this, the last thing that they did, they put a cloud circular out straight after this policy and said that if you were going to host anything on-premise, you had to get an exemption, really driving that nail home. So to the fun technical stuff, or as technical as I'm going to get. This picture took us 9 months to draw, and the first version wasn't as pretty or colourful as this. Obviously, it had a platform behind it as well. But to actually enable this, what I had to do is actually establish a new division, a cloud services division, which they called themselves Awesome Cloud Team originally, as a bit of fun and games, but essentially pulled the best and brightest from all the different teams within our organization: network engineers, security architects, developers, application owners, and infrastructure architects into a single team, reporting directly to myself. Now you might think, why is that important? Our organization had set processes, set procedures to do things, and we needed this team to be able to be a bit more agile, to be able to push the boundaries and create something new away from that red tape. So they managed to do this in 9 months. From the ground up, what we established within this platform is that dedicated cloud connectivity as the backbone that brought our New South Wales health data centres, the public cloud environment together onto our health network, giving us that secure, safe, fast backplane. We then decided on a multi-cloud strategy early on and put the foundation services across both of those public cloud offerings. That enabled us to have interoperable architecture, some of our core security offerings across that, and the backing of our whole of government, essentially procurement contracts. That was really how we brokered cloud back into New South Wales Health with the foundation services. Now, the next thing we had to do is really create the provider services on top of that, which is really enabling us to have those enterprise consumable services is what we needed on top of the standard public cloud offering. So this is the integration with our CMDB, Security Operations Center, Identity Management Suites and the like. So that was then put over the top, essentially creating this product called a self-managed cloud. So in our organization, the landing zone is referred to as a self-managed cloud. And To then enable our consumers to consume it easily, we put a self-service portal over the top, basically meaning that anybody in the organization could go request a virtual data center. And once their manager approved it, within 30 minutes, they'd have a virtual data center which was governed and managed, provisioned for them to use. Now, 6 to 8 weeks to 30 minutes. Since we've gone live with this, we've had over 800 provisions of a self-managed cloud or a virtual data center in the organization. But that's not the metric that I'm focused on. The metric there is that we've actually destroyed 130 of them. You might be thinking, why do you care if you've deleted this? Well, it leads that people are actually innovating. They're trying stuff, and then after they're done, they're giving that resource back, something that really didn't happen on-premise. And most of you probably have systems and VMs running that you don't know who owns anymore. So this is actually now working the way we designed. And the one important thing about this, because it was actually established in 2019 when the pandemic happened, as Zoe mentioned, we used this environment to scale really, really quickly. So our virtual telehealth system used this as the backbone of its scale. Our pandemic response platforms predominantly use this cloud environment to actually scale quickly up and down. So we've had the technology sorted, but we needed to get our people the knowledge to actually use this platform effectively. Now, one thing that I want to point out, even before the Great Resignation in 2018, 2019, it is very prevalent at the moment, but even back then we had issues with getting good quality staff in the market, especially in a tiny little state in New South Wales. So what we wanted to do is actually train our people to become developers in this environment. So take them from their old infrastructure roles, their old application support roles, and actually teach them the tools and techniques. So that's how the digital academies were born. 2 streams originally. So we had Agile and Cloud were our first 2 streams. And it's now scaled to 7 streams. We're adding 2 more to it that you can see down the bottom. We did have a cyber stream separately, but we're trying to make it more interactive. And what's important to call out that these aren't just online learning or classroom sessions. It's all about a holistic learning program for employees that they can actually interact with. So not just go do a module and come back home or do a certification and come back home. So we've set up communities of practice and community days where they actually go and share ideas with one another, create that network of communities where they can bounce ideas off each other. Lunch and Learns, where we'll bring an expert either from AWS or another vendor, and we'll do a 1-hour deep dive session and Q&As, and we do that pretty regularly. And game days or hackathons, where they actually take that skill and use it on their, in that environment to actually refine their skill set. And we've had a lot of good feedback about the game days because it reinforces the learning. And AWS has been helping us with running most of those game days over the last 3 years. Very, very positive feedback so far. Just in terms of stats, we've had 8,400 completions of any of those courses or game days since we've started this journey. And we had about 1,000 people that are now trained fully in cloud, which is pretty impressive considering we started a couple of years ago. Now, seeing it's a AWS conference, diving a little bit deeper into what the Cloud Academy looks like, you can see some of the streams there. What we wanted to do with the cloud stream was actually use the industry best practice in training our people. So we used AWS training certification and as well as bespoke training to bring their expertise into this pathway. But we wanted to overlay our complexity, our environment over the top of it. So we essentially customized the program of work. The learning journey for our staff is not only the best practice, cloud and DevOps operations, but also what that looks like in a healthcare setting. They really can't get that anywhere else. And you can see there the pathways, they go from essentials to security to DevOps, and we've actually opened it up to non-technical people as well. So we're trying to get everybody, both technical and non-technical people, trained. So when we surveyed our staff, as with any good program, you should always ask how you're going. When we surveyed our staff earlier this year, 78% of them said that they've actually applied some of the learnings back at work, and 81% have seen an improvement in being able to deliver more confidently and efficiently, so they're not really hesitant, which is great. But the best form of feedback I always find is when you're not asking for it. So we had a Sydney summit earlier this year, and I was just wandering through the crowd going to a session, and one of our employees, really excited, came up to me. He's a pharmacist. He's not been trained in technology at all. came up to me and goes, Farhud, I've just been a deep racer and I've entered in there and I'm doing really well. But he made a point of saying that I went through the academies 6 months ago and I didn't know anything about cloud before that. By the end of the day, he was number 3. He even beat most of our engineers. Now, our engineers were pretty embarrassed, but that's a different story. But that's fantastic, right? When a clinician can actually learn how to use these technologies to use machine learning to do what they need to do. As a result of all this, we've actually now opened this training program up to the entire New South Wales Health. So 160 plus thousand people can actually, enroll and learn. So we had the technology, which was the easy part. We had this mass training and skills development program. Now we needed to sort out our processes and structures. So if we look at our operating model and how we sort of designed this, if we have value for New South Wales Health sitting in the middle, there was 3 big levers that we saw as the reason to change. First one being the changing IT landscape. I think Zoe touched on some of these, which is really emerging technologies, obviously cloud, agile, DevOps, but also the cybersecurity landscape was changing quite a lot. So we needed to be able to react quicker in a safer, more efficient way. The next pillar was our customers. Through our yearly feedback that we were getting from customer surveys, they were highlighting the importance of not just knowledgeable support staff, but more aligned to their value streams of their business. So really aligning the products and platforms to that. And finally, our employees, like most organizations, want a better pathway and a better development pathway and a career pathway through the organization. So that's what was the basis of our operating model change. We also knew that we couldn't run cloud in the traditional IT silos. Most organizations that are running some of this stuff will have an infrastructure team, a network team, database team. You just can't do that when you're moving at this pace. So we wanted to reorganize our teams in these product-based teams and align them with the value streams I spoke about earlier. So to supplement our cloud transformation program, we enabled or established this other stream called our service delivery operating model program, which was really the change enabler for the organization. What we had to be careful of with this particular program was that the team were already busy trying to refactor, reform, and we were also changing their org structures. But we didn't want to go over the top of that and just give them another bunch of stuff to do. So we wanted to really co-create this and actually take a bit of an adaptive approach. So as you can see there, we started with piloting and testing and refining with the initial cohort that were migrating to cloud. We tested the structures, the teams, sizes, and some of the skills that they needed and refined that before we scaled it. Then we took a bit of a systems thinking approach beyond the process, technology, and people aspects and started looking at the culture and the knowledge they needed, plus the customer feedback to bring that into the loop and then take feedback from our teams to see what was working and what wasn't. And to round it all off, obviously had to measure how successful it was. We used objectives and key results to set quarterly goals while still being focused on that longer term objective of being an excellent healthcare organization. One of the other things that was really, really key for me as part of this program was to actually ensure that as part of this journey, our teams actually kept the knowledge within the organization rather than a traditional migration or a lift and shift approach that you hand off to an organization or a partner and you get back your system done and then you have to operate it and you have this skills gap. We really wanted to be part of that journey and learn as we went. Really, the philosophy was that the journey to the cloud starts when you start migrating, but it doesn't actually end there. You have to keep optimizing. So when we partnered with Amazon Web Services, ProServe, and Versant, who were the delivery partner in Australia or New South Wales, to round off that first ecosystem, we actually embedded our partners at all levels of the organization, from the product teams, with our engineers, with our project managers and scrum masters, and also our executive leadership team, so we could actually integrate that within the entire working philosophy. I can't actually tell the difference between who's who within our organization. They're all basically working for the same outcome, which is actually delivering for New South Wales Health, which is fantastic to see. But what we saw within that construct was that when we actually measured those teams that had those people injected in them, they were actually delivering a much faster, but not only faster, but a better quality outcome as a product than the teams that didn't. because they were actually getting that input from those experts about how to do things best. The other thing that it's done is actually gained, our teams have actually, I've seen post some of the migrations, they've actually got the confidence to continue to optimize. In one instance, one of them has actually re-optimized their system as part of a second tranche of optimization and saved us another $80,000 per month, Australian by the way, per month to right-size those environments, which is something we just didn't do previously. Now, all that's great. Another IT program. What does it really mean in terms of benefits back to the healthcare system? So let's see if we can touch on some of those for you in the next couple of slides. Now, as I mentioned, we really didn't want to lift and shift, and we wanted to actually optimize as we went. So when we partnered with ProServe and also our application vendors, as a result of that, we've actually led the way for 6 applications globally being world first or Australian first. 4 of them that you see on here are actually the first anywhere in the world to be hosted on cloud native infrastructure. And 2 of them we were second in the world. I think we got beaten by 1 month by our New Zealand colleagues. Every application you see on this screen has been deployed with at least 1 cloud native resource running underneath it, and all of them have been fully infrastructure as code deployments. 4 of them can auto scale as demand increases and shrinks, and most of them have a single pipeline that can be deployed without any vendor or employee input into it. If you have a look on there, you can see our enterprise image repository system, which has a red logo on it, which is the Amazon FSxN product. I better get that right. And we were beta testers for that product in Australia. That environment is 1.6 petabytes in size and grows by 25% annually. And part of the challenge was how do we automate that growth and hand that back to the application developers so they didn't have to actually constantly raise tickets to and from our other teams. So that's been done. The other one that you can see there is our enterprise patient record system, and we've managed to get a 10-fold performance improvement on that and reduce some of the forced restarts. You'll also see on there is on the top left-hand corner, there is a little logo with Cerner on it and our electronic medical records. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. We're probably going to be one of the world first to also migrate that. Now, because we didn't do lift and shift and we modernized, that's where the value comes back to the system. And just within those 8 applications in the 8 months since go live, so there's a whole bunch of other work that's happened on the side, but these 8 applications, which we've measured very closely, we've managed to realize $25 million worth of benefits. And that includes 144,000 clinical hours back to the clinicians. Now that's huge, just for 8 applications. Most of that has been as a result of a decrease in deployment. So most of that has been a result of an increased availability and less outages and better response times. We've also managed to decrease our deployment times because of all the scripting that I mentioned. So if an application used to take 6 to 8 weeks to deploy, and when you had to patch it, you used to have to take an 8-hour outage, we now can do most of those deployments in about 4 hours, some under half an hour, which means we can take advantage of blue-green deployments and reduce the outages, which means we can do faster upgrades, faster innovation, and actually take the systems down less, which means the clinicians have more time using the application. And as I said, we've increased the performance of our enterprise patient record system. A process used to take 24 hours to go through 5,000 records. That happens now in 3 hours. That 3 hours means that we have more of an integrated view of our data set within a closer time frame during the day for the clinicians to be able to use. So what's next for us? As I mentioned, we've beaten a 25% requirement of moving those service offerings that the strategy needed us to. But by the end of 2024, we've set a mark of 90% out of those government data centers. We want to move everything up, but not just migrate it, but transform it on the way. The other piece I touched on is the Cerner environment. We have 7 Cerner domains within New South Wales Health, and we're looking and have tested and worked and optimized that down to about a 6-hour deployment. And we're looking to move our first production instance by quarter one next year. running on AWS, and we'll follow with the other 7 throughout the year. We're also continuing to refine and refine our operating model and bed that down further and push out our digital academies across the rest of New South Wales Health to uplift the digital capability of the organisation. Whilst we're also doing that, one of the other cool things that we're working on, which is really close to my heart, because I'm the sponsor for this from a technology perspective, is actually expanding our data lake and our image repository use cases. One of the use cases that we have is when we have a service called a telestroke service, which is actually where we virtually bring in clinicians who have a stroke background with patients in all the rural areas in real time to be able to diagnose stroke and actually treat the patients over video conferencing by that real-time stream that's coming. And as most of you might know in this room, the timeliness of that is very important. So there's a door-to-needle time of 60 minutes to get an effective outcome. So what we're doing with that particular cohort and that clinician is we're using the EIR, our image repository, and our data lake, and we're using AWS with SageMaker and some MONAI models to be able to diagnose and treat those patients quicker by analysing those images and being able to assist those clinicians to deliver that outcome faster. That's something we really couldn't have done in the old days with an on-premise environment with that much of a heavy input that we needed from a processing power. So that's something that we're currently working on and should be one of those things that might end up in one of these stages in a couple of years' time when we get a good outcome on that one as well. So some of the challenges. Look, we really can't do this alone. As much as we've pulled and pushed all our application vendors and industry partners up through this journey, we need their help for the rest of this. We need them to lead and innovate their hosting approaches, move to more of an API-based deployment architecture so we can use all of that goodness in cloud to be able to deliver things faster, safer together, so we can meet the rising demands of healthcare. So with that, I want to thank you for attending. I know we've got a fireside chat, but I also want to thank my team back in Australia who've really worked terribly hard over the last 3 years to actually innovate like this, to be able to enable our clinicians to actually deliver better care back to the patient. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you. Thank you, Fahud. I think in Australia we like to say that we punch above we like to think we punch above our weight for a country with only 25 million people. And I think this story with, where they're pushing the boundaries, looking at reskilling their staff, transforming their applications, focusing on their clinicians really does show that eHealth is doing a really, really great job. So Fahud, I'd like you to take a seat while I introduce our International Director of Public Sector Healthcare, Dr. Roland Illing, who is going to come up and join Fahud for a very insightful fireside chat. Thank you, Roland.
Wow. What a story. Absolutely incredible. I think, it's really great to hear such a compelling journey. And, this is why customer stories and customer anecdotes, I think, are so compelling to really understand what Zoe put on the screen at the beginning, saying, these are nice things, transform, innovate, adapt, exceed. Actually seeing it being done, I think, is a really different thing. So congratulations. I think it deserves another round of applause. That's really... So thank you, Zoe. So my name's Dr. Roland Illing. I'm the Director and Chief Medical Officer for AWS Public Sector Health International. I actually had the joy of, in my clinical time, actually working in New South Wales as a time in the emergency department, so I know the area very well. I think that some of the benefits that you've outlined in your presentation were really, again, very compelling. I think those 8 benefits of moving to cloud were quite remarkable in terms of the $25 million cost savings, the 115,000 hours of clinician time saving. I think they're really good data points to hang your discussions on. So again, if you all want to undertake these journeys, I think some of the data that you've provided is really compelling to take back to leadership and to have those discussions. We recently undertook a study across Asia Pacific, and I think it's probably true across most geographies as well, in partnership with Access Health and our institute, which identified 3 major blockers as reasons that sometimes hinder health organizations going to cloud. And really they're around policy, procurement, and professionals, so that training piece. So if I just take each of those 3 elements just one at a time. You mentioned New South Wales had a cloud-first policy.
Yeah.
How much of that was essential in terms of you taking this forward? Because I think that policy piece is often a blocker, especially when looking at other countries where the policy things aren't in place. How did that work?
Well, it was originally, as you said, cloud first. And at that point in time in 2016, I was the lone nut in the corner going, cloud's great. But as with everything, as we moved to that cloud mandate component in 2020, it really made the conversations a lot easier, Roland, in that it not only forced the conversation internally every time you went out to procure a new system, but all that conversation with the vendors that we have, or the application providers we have, it gave us a basis to be able to push back and say, no, we want a cloud-based solution, because New South Wales government strategy is cloud only, not just cloud first. So it really forced that conversation, but even internally within our teams, it really narrowed, anchored the vision to this offering that we were supposed to all go towards, and created that change that we needed. So any good initiative needs a great strategy behind it, and needs to be very, very clear in what it needs to deliver. So that was fantastic help. Prior to that, it was very, very hard to get hearts and minds changed in that way.
And we're seeing that around the world. We're seeing governments making that move to cloud first. But I think that cloud only, I think that sounds like the real differentiator.
And look, putting the other mandate across it that basically said that if you're going to host anything on premise, you have to write a 5-10 page brief coming up through your chief executive to the secretary, to our depth secretary, with a 3-year plan to actually migrate off on-prem and move to cloud. It just makes it that much harder to actually bypass that. And that was another sort of nail in the coffin, I think.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And so moving on to the second thing around that procurement then. That's interesting, because we often see that switch from CapEx to OpEx being quite a blocker, because the CFOs know how to procure CapEx, it's built into their financial modeling. When you're moving to OpEx, they don't quite know how to handle it. How did you have that conversation with your CFO?
Look, I think that's still with the CFOs, more than one. That's probably part of the problem. But look, that's still a bit of a challenge. I won't lie that it's all easy to do. One of the big advantages that we had as part of the business case for this refresh program, we actually pivoted the business case from being very capital upfront and heavy, with a very small OpEx line, to being the other way around. So it was more of an OpEx bid, which basically flatlined the ask over the 10 years, rather than having 2 big 5-year chunks in it. And funnily, our CFO was happier with that, because he could see an ongoing clean spend, rather than us going up to him every 5 years with an unknown, massive capital requirement. So that was part of one of the changes, and one of the big things about this business case, and it is now being embedded more and more into all our new business cases, so we're pushing this way. The difficulty still is in some of those old platforms that you're running, and how to change people's thought processes around, well, now you need to cater for this differently. So we're still working with some of the CFOs within the agencies, but our New South Wales Health CFO, the overarching CFO, definitely seen the value of this in terms of how he forecasts and how he can actually map out the IT spend over the entire spend. So that's been a welcome challenge.
And I'm sure there are many people in the audience who'll be very keen to discuss exactly how you managed to engage the CFOs in that conversation, and exactly what you did to get that over the line. So I think that's a really important piece for everyone to understand, how to get that done. Again, you've demonstrated that really, really nicely. So you've got policy, you've got procurement, and then it's the professional side. And again, just to say, I think that what you've been doing around that digital academy is really awesome, and the amount of training that's been taking place across the board has been really, really impressive. And as you know, AWS has a goal to train 29 million people around the world in digital skills by 2025, and we have
take 160,000 of them.
And based on the work that you've been doing and some of the other organizations in the world, we actually have a dedicated healthcare workforce education program being stood up, which will really scale this even faster. Now, that's great, and you can put the training out there, and you can invite people to partake. But a lot of it's about hearts and minds, and how you take an already busy workforce. So you've got engineers who are really working 24/7 already, and especially going through the pandemic. How do you get their hearts and minds engaged to undertake training in something that otherwise is not familiar?
Look, I think we were fortunate enough with most of our workforce that, as you saw through the feedback, that they wanted those pathways. So part of this journey was actually having a look at the different roles that we had in the organisation, hundreds of them, and collapsing those down into the key roles and the pathways and the career pathways, and then matching the Academy's training program to those pathways. And I think if you saw on the Digital Academy slide, it's not just about the technology skills. There's agile skills about how to actually operate in an agile world, human-centered design, safety, quality. So we're actually trying to create more of a fuller and richer offering than just the technical skills. And obviously, people like the pharmacists that I mentioned, taking those stories and amplifying them, because I think that's where you get people to see, hey, that was my colleague that did that, and that brings that little bit of a emotional connection to it. And look, the uptakes has been fantastic.
I think the numbers speak for themselves, and I think,
Yeah.
and again, as a clinician, seeing those numbers and seeing the non-technical staff also taking on training as well, so they can understand the benefits that cloud migration can bring to healthcare. I think that's as important, isn't it?
100%. It's not, the advantage of this is if as more people understand the technology, understand how to use it around the edges, that's where most of the innovation happens. It's not the IT team that does it. We create the foundational services, and it's really around the sides that when you train the entire organisation in how to deal with this data and how to make value out of it, that's where the gold is, right?
Absolutely, and there's definitely an adoption curve in this, isn't there? And I think you're very much at the tip of the spear in healthcare, because healthcare doesn't have a typical history of being bold and making very aggressive decisions to change the way they do things. Speaking as a clinician, I'm allowed to say that, by the way. That's that's fine. Again, Andy Jassy. Well, I think Andy Jassy says, and I think Top Gun, Maverick from Top Gun also says he feels the need for speed. How did you embark on that journey? How do you make the organisation go quick?
I think you said it. Healthcare doesn't really move quickly, right? But look, for good reason. There's safety, quality concerns in terms of delivering that care, and that's fair enough to some extent. But when the IT organisations that support the clinicians also take that as an opportunity to go pretty slow, that's where the pull and push is for us. And look, to some extent, if you have a look at our Horizon 2 and Horizon 3, which was we essentially put all the systems in Horizon 1, but in Horizon 2 and 3, where we're trying to integrate them all and actually move to personalised healthcare, the clinicians and the patients are asking for more dynamic and more interactive and digital systems where they can actually get the data longitudinally connected, but also for patients to be able to interact with. So that's pushing us a little bit, but then as the pandemic happened, everything just got put on, the old PC used to have a turbo button, got put on turbocharge. And the expectations have changed quite significantly. Things that used to take us years to deploy are now being done in 2 to 4 weeks. And everyone's got a higher, appetite for change. So we're really using that as the basis of continuously pushing to finish what we started and actually getting that systems modernised and getting that personalised healthcare happening.
And I guess it's about expectations as well. It's a cadence that you can get into. And if you demonstrate you can do things quickly and safely with the governance around it
100%.
and the compliance in place, I think that will definitely help the journey.
That's
and
right.
It also shows other jurisdictions and other organisations that it can be done.
That's right, and this was part of the challenge, right? And you always had you can't go that fast within healthcare, but other organisations are doing it. And as you said, if we can show how we can do that safely, without harm, then that creates the confidence level that you need to do it.
With regards to your single digital patient record that you mentioned, there's been a huge announcement made very recently that Cerner was going to be replaced as your primary EMR by Epic. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us a little bit about why New South Wales is going to undergo that change and what it means, really?
As you heard me say, we have 7 Cerner EMR instances across the state, and that's historical just because of the way we were structured. And we've got 2 Orion ones as well. So there's 9 EMRs across the state. On top of that, 7 patient administration systems and 5 LIMS, laboratory information management systems. So when we started looking at our vision for having that longitudinal record across all of our hospitals, so basically when a patient goes in, regardless of the hospital, the clinician can actually interact with the right records. In detail, we went to market, and Epic was chosen to provide that single integrated EMR across all those sites. So 228 hospitals will be using that single EMR. And really, it is to be able to move to that next level where you have patients being able to be at the centre of their own care, being able to interact with their results, with them scheduling themselves into seeing clinicians and so on, but also clinicians being able to see the entire record history to provide that better care, and then using the data obviously for other initiatives such as our, any AI/ML initiatives that to improve care further. So that's the vision behind it. It's at the start of that journey. It's going to be pretty exciting, I think. From what I understand, it's going to be one of the largest single Epic deployments when we finish it in a couple of years. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think, again, that re-emphasises the work that's been done in Tufts Medicine and in Geisinger Health in the US, where Epic is being fully deployed in production on AWS. And again, I think this is going to be a real lighthouse example, certainly across Asia Pacific, but I think actually across the world, about the size and scale and ambition of what you're undertaking. So again, it's going to be a great program. And I think it shows very much around patient empowerment as well. I think that journey towards patient engagement with their own records and having that longitudinal view about outcomes that are individual to them, I think, again, it shows great vision on your part about that is where you want to go to.
Broader New South Wales Health, obviously. I wish I could take credit for all of that role. But yeah, look, I think that is a key feature. And as Zoe said, the biggest thing for me is we're here delivering the systems, but at the same time, we're also seeing the impact of that when we're using it ourselves. So it is I guess, a very personal journey for most of us in eHealth and New South Wales Health about some of these systems. So definitely looking forward to that. I'm not going to call it a transformation, but maybe broader than that, it's a sort of a health reform that's coming through, I guess.
Perfect. And in terms of, obviously, to do a transformation like this, as you showed a great partner slide that showed you how you're interacting with your systems integrator partners, but also AWS professional services, as well as the AWS healthcare team and the local teams on the ground. How did you find that kind of managing? You said it was almost indistinguishable, the teams. How did you find bringing those teams together and working together with the SIs and the AWS professional services?
Yeah, look, I think this is probably one of those things that you could call it an innovation in terms of how we contracted. As I mentioned, I didn't want to contract a bunch of applications being migrated with the keys handed over and having to struggle to support it. So the ask was that you actually are embedded with your skill sets within our organisation, and back-to-back AWS ProServe actually bringing the right partner for the right component. So we use AWS for most of the big strategic, big architectural conversations, and then they augment or supplement those resources with niche skills from the partner organisations. And we work together in terms of what we need to fill for what program and actually then deploy that. And it's been that strategic ongoing conversation rather than piecemeal having to stop-start. We have that sort of follow-through and carry on, which basically means they understand our environment, they understand our culture and how we work, the challenges within the healthcare system, and that when they actually are working with us, then they also understand how we work and how we deploy. So ultimately becoming a lot more successful and less friction.
That's great. And again, just seeing that teamwork across the board is, again, really inspirational.
Yeah, look, and to some extent, we've all got them. They all have got their own teams with their own names. They've got shirts with labels on it. So you can also make it fun. Create some games between them and competition. You just watch all that goodness come to life. It's fantastic just to see people engage with it.
Perfect. I really liked on your New South Wales mission statement that you had sustainability as a key point. And we hear from customers around the world that sustainability is getting more and more of an issue, especially around carbon footprint and consumption, especially around the energy crisis that's going on at the moment, and managing their own data centers. The cost of managing those data centers is going up. Obviously AWS are launching some specific things around that. So the carbon customer footprint tool, is that been?
I did actually hear about that in one of the sessions. So we have as part of our business plan, we do have a sustainability and resilience stream we're looking at, and part of it is from a eHealth perspective, trying to measure our output in terms of, or savings in terms of carbon footprint and energy consumption within our data centers as part of the migration. So I'll be looking at that tool when I go back. We do have some bold targets, but we've done some initial measurement, and we think haven't done the full numbers, so I'm not going to quote percentages, but I think it's pretty significant in terms of these migrations and the ability to turn things on and off, but also your data centers being a bit more efficient than ours. So I think definitely we'll do our bit as part of this, as well as the whole of New South Wales Health, who's really pushing these boundaries with putting solar panels on top of some of the larger hospitals to make them relatively self-sufficient. So
perfect. No, and actually, I thought that your examples of elasticity about not only being able to spin up instances as needed, but also shutting them down, 100%. I think that was a really good call out, because I do think that's something which is often overlooked, the ability to really know that your data architecture and to be able to turn it off when it's not being needed.
Look, and that's where part of that engagement, as I said, keeping our team, making sure our teams have the ability to optimize post-go lives. So that whole FinOps component about being able to not only scale up, as you said, for performance impacts, but know how to turn things off, how to optimize that infrastructure in the best way possible, whether it's reserved instances or whether it's elastic instances, but definitely shutting things down when you don't need it, put the automation around it, so you can spin up development environments and get rid of them at the end of the day. It's definitely something we've embedded into those product teams.
Perfect. And again, it's just a way of operating, isn't it? It's just part of that operating model. That's really good. So I'm aware that we're getting very close to the end. So I just want to ask you, if you want to leave the audience with one piece of advice, what would you sort of put out there to say, if you could go back in time, what would you have done earlier or start at the beginning? Where would you? What's your thing you'll leave them with?
I'm going to leave them with two, if that's okay.
No, two's fine.
One is, I guess the hardest part in all of this was the operating model change, the people process stuff. Don't underestimate that. I probably ignored it for a bit too long, and I wish that was the first thing we started first, because getting people on that journey up front with that clear vision actually helps you down the track. It's a lot less back and forth, as it were. So that's still an ongoing piece for us, but I think if we'd started that probably about a year earlier, we would have been there a lot quicker. The second part is don't give up. Keep pushing those clinical vendors to actually re-platform and use cloud as much as possible. They'll give you all sorts of excuses why things won't work, but at the end of the day, it does. And if you push them hard enough to change their models of delivery, you're the customer, and they will ultimately listen. So if all of us do that, I'm pretty sure that we'll get the change that we need.
Perfect. Well, once again, thank you so much for your wisdom and sharing that with us today. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to keep you guys up here just for a moment because I've just got one last slide. The pandemic threw every organization all around the globe into digital transformation at the same time, and no vertical was hit harder than healthcare. This is a time to take the transformation that you've led through the pandemic, the strides in virtual care and the new research collaborations or industry collaborations you've forged, and keep accelerating them into ongoing transformation for your organization to deliver cost-optimized, value-based healthcare. It's going to require every layer of the healthcare industry to come together, as we've mentioned throughout this, but there's a good reason to do that, because every single one of us are recipients of that care. And so we want to be able to receive that for ourselves in our city, in every state, in every country, all around the globe. And value-based healthcare will help us do that. AWS is committed to working with every single layer of the healthcare ecosystem to do just that sooner. So I would like to thank Fahud and Roland for joining me in this session, and we would all like to thank each of you for coming here and joining us. We hope you have learned something new and leaving us with some new cherubs of information that you didn't know before. So thank you, and we hope you enjoy the rest of reInvent.